Hello everyone, I am the Lore Explorer, and this is the Outer Wilds. Today, we are going to do an in-depth explanation of the quantum black hole eye theory and its mechanics. Then, we are going to connect most of them to the other mechanics seen throughout the game. I'll need to be thorough, as most of the terminology should let us piece it together. So let's start at the High Energy Lab. The experiment here has some interesting results if you're willing to destroy the universe itself, that is. Powering it up and creating a white-black hole combo lets us play around a bit. Shooting our scout through the black hole causes the same scout to come out of the white hole before it even enters the black hole. If we interrupt this process and look at the new scout, we see it is the source of a very bad result. The fabric of space-time gets destroyed. The reason for this is causality is broken. Since the scout never entered the black hole to begin with, nothing caused it to exit the white hole. That is simply not possible, and the result is space-time being broken. Next, let's move on to the Ash Twin Project's new little paradox. If we jump into the black hole at the Ash Twin Projects, we die. But we also get expelled from the white hole 22 minutes before we entered, just like at the HEL with the scouts. The result is the original player character waking up the night before his first launch, and a copy of us, which was sent back 22 minutes from when we died, which means he starts the loop at the ATP, since that happens to be 22 minutes before we died. They both arrive at the same time. But I think the main thing to focus on here is the black-white hole combos can change the past, and as long as that change always happens, each loop after the original cause, it's fine. With our copy here, if we don't jump through the black hole, again, space-time is destroyed. But not till it is impossible for us to cause the copy in the first place. Basically, we are making a promise with the universe. A promise that we will jump into this black hole and cause the copy to be made in the first place. If we break that promise, boom. Now, let's talk about the quantum objects in the game. These objects exist in every possible state they can exist in. When we, a conscious observer, observe such an object, we collapse it down into a single possible state, as long as we are observing them. It's pretty simple. For this game, anyway. Talk about how we can entangle with these objects. We are able to stand on a quantum object that we are observing. If we then stop observing that object, we entangle with it. This allows us to become one with the object, enabling us to teleport along with it as it moves along through its locations. Finally, we can take a look at the quantum moon. Visiting each version of the moon, we see it has traits from the planet it orbits, even if the original planet isn't in that state anymore. Bramble's moon, for example, is an icy one, even though most of that ice has been broken up. But the quantum moon isn't the only place we can find this quantum smoke. When we teleport to the eye and look down, the planet below is surrounded by this smoke on every side, leaving only the South Pole available for landing, since the North Pole has the eye itself. Now, I know that was pretty thorough, but to explain what's happening at the eye, I need to use almost all of those terms, so I need to make sure that we were on the same page. Now that we are, we can talk about what we know about the eye from the story. It was originally found via a signal the Nomai received. That signal revealed it to be older than the universe we are currently in. We know the signal it gives off now is a quantum one, and looking down on it, it seems to be sucking in the quantum smoke we saw around the quantum moons. We also see a pattern around the eye that doesn't seem to move. It waves in and out with the smoke, but that's it. I think these may be what the eye uses to extract power from the universe. It was here before the Big Bang, so it should have been able to collect all of that energy, and any left over since then. If we follow this logic, the eye has been collecting the quantum smoke, which is nothing more than storing quantum data, or quantum possibilities, and it's been collecting energy since the beginning of the universe, including when the Big Bang was around. So what we have here, if left to its own devices, is an all-knowing, since it sucked up every quantum possibility, and all-powerful black hole. But what can a black hole do on its own? Not much, unless someone came to entangle with it. If someone visited the eye, a conscious observer, that's exactly what the eye needs, but for two reasons. Sure, the eye needs someone to observe it, someone to collapse the innumerable possibilities it's been collecting since the beginning of the universe. And the second, and in my opinion most important, may answer the question on how the eye knew to call out. See, the eye has done this before. It had to create our universe. It has to have already entangled with someone, a previous observer. And that observer had to go through roughly the same events we had when it entangled with the eye on its original journey. And at that point, the eye got access to its consciousness. And there is evidence for that coming up. The eye needed this to happen. I'll explain why soon. Now that we've talked about the eye and what we know about it, we can look at the events in-game for support. The eye knew exactly when to call out to the Nomai, and then it stopped calling. The eye sat dormant for roughly 200,000 years, and then let the probe find it right when we sync with our memory statue. This can't be a coincidence. I suggest the previous conscious observer set this in motion, or at least the eye did, using their conscious, as whoever that was would have been through this 14.3 billion years ago, when it found the eye during its original journey. If you are following the logic, it makes total sense the eye would know when to call out, and when to hide, and when to show itself to the Nomai probe. With all of this in mind, let's visit the eye and see if my observations hold up. When we get to the planet, we can head towards the signal. Once we reach the equator, below the quantum smoke, lightning starts crashing down around us. There has to be a huge amount of energy flowing through the quantum smoke for this to happen. Energy the eye can collect. And look at that. It's sending down trees and rocks. It has to be storing that information that makes up these trees somewhere as well. Once we make it through the storm, we are met with the source of the quantum signal. To me, this looks like nothing more than a black hole, sucking in quantum matter only, leaving regular matter in the universe alone. And jumping in leads us to some strange place, but this is definitely the smoke we've seen coming in from above the eye. All of the quantum possibilities, from the beginning of our universe, or maybe even older, all collected and confined to one area, and we just entered it. As soon as we touch this smoke, we find ourselves at the Harthian Museum. The quantum smoke around us changing the reality, just like with the quantum moons, except this time we are entangled with the eye and not the moon. Since we are entangled, the eye now has access to our conscious. That's how we can see the museum around us, and that's why I think it can access our consciousness as well as the previous observers. The eye, using the previous observer, and now your consciousness, is able to communicate with you. Here it shows you the entire universe in its splendor. This suggests it really does know everything in the universe. And still using this smoke, the eye shows you the fate of the universe you're currently in. But very fittingly, as our stars slowly fade out, new lights soon appear in the distance. Moving towards them, we arrive in the ancient glade, a place we've read about in a poem. I'm not quite sure why, but the eye shows us a copy of ourselves. From what we have seen, this should cause a problem, but it seems to be the work of the smoke, and not real. Our copy turns to a tree, and the tree soon gets younger, suggesting time is not linear here. Soon enough, it turns to a campfire, which we have come to find comfort in. And it turns out Esker joins us soon after. The eye is using the smoke around us to show us a way to find all of our friends. I think it's worth noting, I think their songs are probably what allows us to bring the information they've learned throughout their lives here. Each being's lives is a song, holding all of their character and experience they've used to craft that song. And as we find each of their instruments, we notice they are in environments that reflect the ones each traveler was exploring. Rebik has a love for Nomai. We find his banjo in Nomai ruins. Turt loved watching the stars, and his bongo orbits a star which is surrounded by many others. I believe their songs bring this information here. Once we collect all of our friends, we can play the song that we brought here from the memory of them. The song starts to play, and smoke from the campfire starts to coalesce. But look what it's collecting into. It's the smoke the eye's been collecting since the beginning of our universe. The quantum smoke all begins to flash as images start to appear. It shows us some of what it's been storing. Some of it we don't recognize at all, but some of the things we can pick out. Our ship, an anglerfish, trees, a Nomai shuttle, and a Nomai itself. I'll try to explain this in a little bit here. To collapse these innumerable quantum possibilities, we have to enter the smoke ball, like we did with the eye. Jumping into it, the ground we are on begins to expand, and so do your friends. The quantum smoke holding all of the possibilities condenses into a singularity. We then see that same smoke expand and explode into a brilliant white light. This is what I believe to be the quantum black hole's quantum white hole. Mathematically, the Big Bang and the white hole are the same thing. Something that expels all matter it holds out equally, and we are surely witnessing the Big Bang. After credits roll, the next thing we see is a slide from 14.3 billion years later, letting us know, even though we didn't save our solar system and all of our friends, we saved the universe. But really, that's not where it ends. Remember, going through a black hole and changing the past is a promise with the universe. In this universe, there has to exist a species capable of finding the eye, and one that can get there and enter the eye. Without those two things, the promise could never be fulfilled. The eye does know all of the possibilities allowing for that to happen, but it doesn't know which of those possibilities needs to be a certainty for the promise to be fulfilled. This means we were needed not only to observe it, but to show the eye which of the innumerable possibilities needed to be certain. It doesn't matter the exact details specifically, as long as the bug creatures or whomever can reach the eye, they can fulfill the promise we made with the universe. Because we are entangled with the eye. We specifically aren't being sent back. The entire universe is. And it's being sent back to a state where only atoms exist anyway. From there, any of the quantum possibilities can naturally occur. But think about it. With innumerable possibilities, what are the chances the new universe would contain an intelligent species capable of finding the eye near the end of the universe? And on top of that, a species who can later travel to the eye with that knowledge, and then collapse those possibilities. The chances that this scenario would naturally occur would be innumerably low. I propose that with our consciousness, the eye learned which few possibilities needed to be a reality for the promise to be fulfilled. And that means that we would be the one who sends out the signal for the next species to find the eye, since we know when it occur. Just as I proposed the last one did for us. Do you see how this is all just a cycle, acting exactly how the ATP would on an immense scale? Just with the quantum possibilities involved, and how the eye would need to call out in order to fulfill the promise it made with the universe. How it showed the innumerable possibilities, yet the ones we recognize are integral to finding, then arriving at the eye, allowing the promise to be fulfilled. If you see the connections as I do, I'd like to mention the theme I see present here. Only through knowledge and study of the universe are we able to truly understand the challenges around us. The challenges we see every day, like disappearing and reappearing stones, or black holes that seem to teleport us back in time. It also touches how on every choice is as important as the universe itself. In the scale of things, it may make you feel insignificant. Your whole journey was to save the ones you loved. Hal, Esker, Feldspar. Yet we failed that mission. But each of the choices we made along the way ultimately saved the universe. And without those choices, even an all-knowing, all-powerful being is useless. The eye is as useless as can be without a marshmallow roasting maverick. But I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. But for now, this is the Lore Explorer, just trying to pick up where the Nomai left off. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you agree with the theory, maybe share it with your friends so they can understand the universe just a little bit better.